Welcome to NVL Travel Documentary.
San Diego is too beautiful to be real, but the truth is being revealed every day. As the sun sets, thousands of people huddle under overpasses next to brightly lit tourist billboards, as if everything is fine. A city once praised for its quality of life and ideal climate is now changing from within, slowly, quietly, and irreversibly. The shadow of the homelessness crisis is no longer on the urban fringes. It is looming over the entire center. Number 1. A city out of its own rhythm. A few blocks from downtown San Diego, new construction continues to rise. Gleaming glass facades, high-end finishes billboards advertising two-bedroom apartments for more than $1 million. Meanwhile, on a street less than 2 minutes away, a 67-year-old man huddles in a torn sleeping bag outside a bus stop. These are not two different realities. This is one city, one moment, one time. And this is how San Diego has twisted itself a growth cycle that has left too many people behind. According to 2025 data from the California Housing Partnership, the median household income in San Diego is about $81,000 a year. But to be able to buy a home here, residents need to earn at least $241,200 a year, nearly 3 times that. For renters, that number is more accessible, but only in theory. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in San Diego has surpassed $2,800 a month, forcing more than half of renters to spend more than 50% of their income on rent, not including food, healthcare, or transportation. Many residents with steady jobs, hotel workers, delivery men, even kindergarten teachers, are being pushed out of the city by its own unchecked price increases. This is changing the city's demographics. Low-income young people are moving to the suburbs or living in crowded apartments. Meanwhile, neighborhoods like the East Village and Barrio Logan are seeing a surge in people living in cars, RVs, or tents. The growth of key economic sectors, technology, tourism, real estate, while bringing revenue and prosperity to some, has further deepened the gap between classes. Viewers watching this content have probably experienced the scene of jostling in rush hour traffic, then seeing people living on the side of the road just a few inches from their car windows. That is no longer strange. And because it is so familiar, we are losing our sense of urgency. The growing homeless population is not only a sign of poverty, but also a reflection of a city that has gone off track. A city cannot operate solely for the benefit of those who can afford it. When the socioeconomic ecosystem is out of balance, it creates voids, and those voids increasingly resemble a hollow city. Amid the billboards calling for investment and multi-million-dollar real estate projects, people who are struggling to survive are nowhere to be found. The question now is not, why don't they try harder? But, why does a city let so many people fall off the treadmill they themselves help run? Number 2. The disease of an urban ecosystem. San Diego's housing problem is not simply a lack of apartments or temporary housing. It is a consequence of the way the city has been designed, planned, and operated for decades. Living space has increasingly been optimized for profit, while the people who need a place to live have not been included in the blueprints. This is a structural crisis where the urban system has been creating instability instead of solving it. San Diego has some of the strictest zoning laws in California. Older neighborhoods, especially in the suburbs, mostly allow for single-family homes with few multifamily or affordable housing projects. This makes the supply of affordable housing extremely limited, even as demand explodes. According to the California Housing Partnership's 2025 report, San Diego County needs at least 136,631 additional affordable rental units to meet current demand. However, the actual growth rate is less than 10% per year. At the administrative level, coordination between the city, county, state, and federal government is also fraught with gaps. A CBS 8 report last year found that San Diego receives an average of more than 300 complaints a month about homeless encampments. Ironically, many of these are located on land not directly under the city's control, which slows or prevents a response. The fragmented responsibility structure is indirectly paralyzing the local policy response. In addition, federal housing assistance funds, while large in amount, are difficult to disperse. In 2023, San Diego received $50 million from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development issued for homeless assistance projects. However, the project approval process takes months, coupled with legal constraints and environmental impact assessments, leaving the actual budget hanging between levels. Within the city, lack of coordination slows down efforts. For example, when it comes to building permits, many affordable housing projects take 12 to 18 months to get through the approval process due to building code requirements and local community pushback. The "not in my backyard" NIMBY movement remains strong in areas like Claremont North Park and La Jolla, where residents worry that the projects will reduce property values or change the character of the community. Against this backdrop, San Diego continues to invest heavily in infrastructure to support high-end developments. The Mission Valley Revitalization Project, the high-rises near Westfield UTC, and the large convention centers near tourist areas. But almost no percentage of those projects is for affordable housing, or if they are, the amount is too small to make a difference. Viewers who have lived in San Diego or worked in construction or real estate may have seen this paradox. A city with hundreds of luxury housing projects is easily permitted, while low-income housing models are pushed back by community-resistance land laws and a lack of priority mechanisms. This is no longer a story of political will. It is a story of engineering, budgeting, and organizations that are not working properly. The imbalance doesn't stop at housing. Community health services, mental health support systems, addiction treatment centers, and basic income programs are all fragmented, under-resourced, and understaffed. According to 2024 statistics from the San Diego County Department of Health Services, more than 50% of homeless people there have signs of a mental or substance abuse disorder. Yet the city has only 3 community treatment centers operating at full capacity, which are often overcrowded and have waiting lists that stretch for weeks. Every city must choose between expanding toward people or closing off for short-term gain. San Diego is teetering between those two paths, and the current urban ecosystem, from housing to planning to public services, is no longer a support, but a part of the cause of pushing people to the margins of society. Number 3, behind the fences and rules. Addressing homelessness isn't just an economic problem, it's a legal maze. San Diego is being held back by the very laws it must comply with. A system designed to maintain order and protect individual rights has become a cramped, inflexible, and slow-to-response framework in the midst of a housing crisis. One of the key points was Martin v. Boise, 2018, a case with national implications. The court ruled that no city could criminalize sleeping on sidewalks or public spaces if it did not provide adequate shelter. This forced local governments like San Diego to change their approach. They could no longer evict homeless people from parks or under overpasses without an alternative place to send them. In theory, this was a humane step. In practice, it created a tension between the law and the capacity to provide services. San Diego responded with a controversial policy, a ban on tenting on public land, effective July 2023. The order is clear: Camping or tenting is illegal in downtown areas near schools' bus stops if shelter beds are available. However, statistics from San Diego County show that on any given night in 2024, only about 3,800 shelter beds were available, while the homeless population hovered around 10,800. This creates a paradoxical situation. People are being fined, evicted, even though there is no legal place for them to sleep. From a human rights perspective, this raises serious concerns. Laws are being used to protect urban image rather than to protect the right to a basic living. As the National Homelessness Law Center has noted, tent bans can lead to the confiscation of personal property, the disposal of identification documents, medicines, and even pets. Things that are integral to the lives of homeless people. Another problem lies in the legal structure of urban planning. San Diego's zoning system is largely determined by local community boards, many of which are dominated by middle-class voters who worry that public housing will lead to crime and lower home values. They oppose the construction of affordable housing or temporary shelters in their neighborhoods. While this is a legitimate civil right, the result has been a series of projects that have stalled or have been relocated to outlying areas with no transit, no health care, and no nearby jobs. It's also worth noting a little notice detail: homeless people often can't access legal services when they're fined, evicted from public spaces, or have their property stolen. This creates a vicious administrative cycle. Without identification, they can't apply for benefits. Without benefits, they can't access shelter. Without shelter, they're fined for lying on the sidewalk. This process doesn't reduce the number of people living on the streets, it just drives them deeper into invisibility. Policy-wise, San Diego is in a quandary. Every ban, every enforcement attempt risks becoming a legal battle, a drain on the budget, and a loss of credibility. But inaction is not an option. When the legal system is not designed to respond to a large-scale social crisis, every solution is caught between legitimacy and necessity. Number 4. Behind every tent is a fractured community. San Diego's homelessness crisis is not just a problem of the homeless. It is creating a simmering rift in the community between residents and government, between businesses and customers, and between those who have a place to go and those who have nothing. Inside the city, the mood is changing, not because of the weather, but because of the sense of uncertainty that permeates everyday life. The East Village, once a symbol of urban renewal, has become a hotspot. At rush hour, residents walk past tents set up against the walls of buildings where people are eating a box of cold noodles or resting their heads on backpacks. A 2024 survey by the University of San Diego found that 65% of downtown residents felt less safe than they did 5 years ago. The concern is not just about safety, but also about the quiet disruption of lifestyles. Children no longer have the freedom to walk to school. Seniors avoid leaving their homes after dark. Residents are canceling afternoon public gatherings, businesses especially. Downtown restaurants, retailers, and small hotels are feeling the direct impact. The San Diego Chamber of Commerce says 40% of businesses in the Gaslamp district have reported a drop in revenue as customers avoid areas with high homeless populations. One restaurant owner, James Tran, had to remove outdoor tables after customers complained about the proximity of a tent camp along the sidewalk. None of these losses are covered by any policy. Amid the criticism and concern, another social front is emerging: a group of citizens who are actively helping. Volunteers at churches, community centers, and even residents themselves are organizing groups to distribute food or pick up trash around the camps. Some people who once opposed the presence of the camps have changed their minds after direct contact. But many others maintain that any form of status quo only exacerbates the problem. The conflict between the parties is not only about different interests, but also about a lack of confidence in the solution. Residents demand tough action, while activists call for a humanitarian approach. The government is forced to make quick decisions, but every move is met with mixed reactions. When society is divided in opinion, any policy becomes fragile in the face of public opinion. More than a demographic problem, the homelessness crisis is leading to a crisis of trust within the community. And when a city no longer has a shared understanding of the concept of coexistence, it begins to fall apart from within, not because the bricks and mortar collapse, but because the bonds between people are eroded. Number 5. Policy not enough medicine. San Diego is not standing still in the face of its homelessness crisis. In recent years, the city has introduced a series of new policies, from expanding temporary shelters to developing comprehensive long-term supportive housing models. Some of these projects have yielded tangible results. But when viewed in the context of a long-term and widespread crisis, these measures have been lacking in depth, speed, and sustainability. In 2022, the city will add about 1,000 more shelter beds, including repurposing space at the Golden Hall Center for emergency housing. This is considered a step in the right direction, as it at least partially satisfies the legal requirements of Martin v. Boise. However, according to San Diego County's 2024 count, the total homeless population at the time of the count is about 10,800. So even if all shelters were at full capacity, thousands of people would still be forced to sleep on the streets. Mayor Todd Gloria's administration has launched a plan to build 5,000 affordable housing units by 2030. But the project has faced many obstacles: budgetary constraints, legal disputes over land acquisition, and opposition from local councils. In 2024, only about 740 units have been started under the plan, a number too small to make a systemic difference. The most notable model is Housing First, a policy that places housing as the starting point, without conditions for recovery and reintegration. San Diego officially implemented this model in 2020. The initial results are positive. More than 2,500 people have been placed in long-term housing within 4 years. These people also have access to medical services, mental health support, and vocational guidance. The model shows a housing retention rate of up to 86% after 6 months, outperforming traditional temporary housing options. But the cost of operation remains an open question. Housing First costs an average of $30,000 a year to operate, including housing support staff, medical and legal services. With a city budget of just over $200 million for the entire homeless program, the model cannot be scaled up to make a big impact. In 2023, the city will also test a tiny home village solution, mini cabins, located near Pacific Highway and Rosecrans Street. Each unit is equipped with a bed, electrical outlets, heating, and a door that locks. Residents can access health care and personal counseling services. According to internal reports, more than 1,800 people have used the service, and about 40% of them have transitioned to permanent housing. Despite the positive results, the model has not escaped the shadow of a temporary solution. Another issue is the lack of specialized staff to enforce policies. Shelters often lack experienced medical staff, mental health counselors, or case managers. The San Diego County Department of Health Services confirmed it was operating at a staffing shortage of about 23% by early 2025, largely due to high workloads, low incomes, and a lack of administrative support. Despite federal efforts like HUD funding and Care Court, a special court program for homeless people with mental illness, the legal and administrative systems are not up to speed. Care Court, which will be implemented in California by late 2023, allows people with serious mental illness to be placed in mandatory medical legal support with the hope of reducing street crime and reintegrating them into society. But the review process takes an average of 3 to 5 months per case. With thousands of cases pending, the pace of intervention is not enough to make a difference. San Diego's policies are moving in the right direction, but too slowly in a race that can't wait. Every month that passes without strong action means hundreds of people remain without a roof over their heads, without a way off the streets, without a chance at recovery. In a city facing systemic social decline, current policy prescriptions, however well-intentioned, are not enough of a cure. Number 6. San Diego and the mirrors. San Diego is not alone. Other major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Portland are also facing homelessness crises, each with its own unique management style successes and failures. Looking to them, San Diego can look to itself, not to copy, but to avoid making the same mistakes. In Los Angeles, the homeless population will surpass $75,000 by 2024. Part of the reason is the same rising housing costs as in San Diego, but the root cause lies in internal policy confusion. Despite spending more than $1 billion a year on anti-homelessness programs, much of the budget is spread across multiple layers of bureaucracy, lacking oversight. Skid Row. A symbol of social breakdown in the heart of the city is the most obvious example. Thousands of people live close together in unsanitary conditions that are prone to violence and disease outbreaks. San Diego has the advantage of not having such a crisis core, but the lesson is that big investments don't mean efficiency without strategy and oversight. San Francisco presents a different kind of paradox. The city has long had fairly progressive policies, rent assistance, public housing, and a street health program. Yet its homelessness rate remains high at 795 people per 100,000 residents, one of the worst in the country. The problem is sustainability budgets. Our high programs are plentiful, but there is no clear system for measuring effectiveness. Some programs work well, but they are not scaled up because of policy conflicts between agencies. Portland offers a different perspective, where the government allows homeless people to camp in certain public areas. This was initially intended to reduce violence between law enforcement and homeless people. But over time, the encampments grew rapidly, creating huge pressures on the environment and infrastructure. Residents reacted angrily, demanding a change in policy. Too much freedom without limits and support can be counterproductive. Compared to these cities, San Diego is more neutral, not too radical, not too extreme. The cautious approach helps avoid big mistakes, but also slows down breakthroughs. What is needed now is not to choose sides, but to learn to respond flexibly, systematically, and based on real data, something that these other examples lack. And number 7. Reconstruction or continued disintegration. San Diego is at a crossroads, no longer a city with a homelessness problem, but a city forced to choose, continue to patch up the system with short-term fixes, or completely reimagine its approach to housing, social services, and urban planning. This is not a cosmetic choice. It is a choice between maintaining a healthy urban community or sliding into long-term social decline. The truth is clear: the problem will not go away. Every delay in policy, every tent camp cleared without replacement, every shelter bed not provided, all are steps backward. In contrast, models like housing first cabin villages and community health support networks have proven effective when properly funded and implemented. There are no perfect solutions, but there are good choices that need to be made. Viewers watching this content, whether they are local residents, former San Diego residents, or simply concerned citizens, have a role to play. Public policy is influenced by public opinion. Citizen pressure creates political backlash, and that's where change has a chance to begin. A city cannot rebuild itself on the strength of government alone. It requires persistence, truth, and consensus, not in a single year or a single term, but in multiple phases, with a vision that housing is not just an asset, but a foundation for survival and equity. With the right choices, San Diego still has the ability to turn around, but time is running out for that choice. Thanks for sticking around. The story of San Diego isn't just about numbers or policies. It continues every day on every street, in every decision made by communities and governments. If this has helped you understand what's going on behind the glitzy tourist facade, please leave a comment to share your thoughts. We're always interested in hearing different perspectives. Don't forget to like. If you find the information valuable, share the video to spread awareness about this issue, and subscribe to the NVL Travel Documentary channel so you don't miss out on authentic and necessary urban stories like this. See you on the next journey, where we continue to look deeper into what few people see.